For Splodinator.com, I'm Noobs. Well, guys, I'm sure you know why I'm here today. It's to talk all about the big story that Eurogamer published all about the NX. We've actually got some NX details here. Now, Eurogamer is very reliable. They cite multiple sources in this story. It's certainly not a complete picture of NX, but I think this is the first real meaty news we've gotten about the system. Let's get into what they have to say and try to decipher what's going on in this because it's not always clear. So they start out by describing the NX as a portable handheld console with detachable controllers. A screen bookended by two controller sections on either side, which can be attached or detached as required. Then they've got an illustration on the page, which roughly looks like a gamepad, and then they show that the two sides are basically split off into small rectangles. Basic controllers, obviously, where you've got the joystick and the D-pad on one of them, the joystick and the buttons on the other, and then they show the screen itself, the rest of the system propped up on a little kickstand, and apparently you can use these small detachable controllers as two separate controllers and use the screen as like a TV screen. This brings up all kinds of questions, of course. Now, it was confirmed by the author of the story. He confirmed on Twitter that yes, it does have a stand, and also that there are in fact two controllers, not just one. I am baffled by this idea. It really brings into question how big this thing is. And exactly what kind of multiplayer you might be able to do on it. I mean, even the biggest tablet would be awkward to play anything split screen on, right? I guess I could see a simple single screen game being played on this. But then, even still, I really wonder about the size of that screen. I mean, surely it's not going to be bigger than Wii U. I can't even imagine it being as big as the Wii U screen. In which case, how are you going to be able to see with any sort of distance and play, with these detached controllers? I get that in Japan they have less space. Families don't have multiple TVs necessarily. It's nice to have something that the kids can go play multiplayer on and leave the main TV alone. But I just don't see it. And then I have to think, if they're going to try to pull this off, it's got to be a pretty sizable screen on there, which cuts into then the appeal in Japan of, an actual standard handheld that you take on the train, which is a big deal there. Okay, then the author goes on to say that there is a docking station. A base unit or dock station is used to connect the brain of the NX within the controller to display on your TV. So very confusingly, now he's saying controller singular. And I have to think that there's no processors, RAM and all of that inside those little break-off controllers. He's got to mean the core of the unit, like with the screen attached to it, right? It's confusing. Now, here's what I'm picturing, assuming that there's just a bit of a typo in here. What I'm thinking is you've got your NX handheld. You sort of pop off the controller sides. You've got that screen plus, kind of the guts in the middle. You plug that into a docking station. That then sends an HDMI signal to your TV. And then maybe those little break-off controllers sync to it. And I assume as well you're going to have more standard controllers. I mean, if you're thinking of only one half of a Wii U gamepad, that's not enough to play Breath of the Wild on. I mean, they were using all the sticks and buttons at E3 for that game. So I've got to think you're going to be able to use, your standard Wii U Pro controller style controller once you've hooked this thing up to a TV, or it's just not going to work. As far as the internals on this thing, they said it was going to use NVIDIA Tegra. Specifically, the dev kits are using a Tegra X1 chip, which would put its power somewhere between a 360 and an Xbox One. They do speculate in a companion article that came out along with the main article that maybe the X1 is a placeholder for a theoretical X2 chip, just because the current dev kits are using fan cooling, which there's no way they're going to have that in a handheld. So it's a little odd. Obviously, they're dev kits, they're not final. We'll see. Power-wise, though, I think it is clear that this is not going to be a PS4 killer. You know, it's Nintendo. I didn't really have my hopes up power-wise. My biggest concern was unifying the game library on this thing, and this really confirms it. This is a hybrid, the much speculated hybrid that we've been hearing people talk about for, you know, how long. And I think that is really the takeaway from all of this. We are getting a unified system from Nintendo, which means way less droughts. All their teams can just focus on one device. They don't have to, you know, shift gears from 3DS to Wii U and back again. We don't have to see duplicate games across systems like we saw so much of this gen. I'm hoping for more games and more variety because of this. I think this alone will be a huge benefit for Nintendo. They also say something we've been hearing a lot about, which is that the NX will use cartridges rather than discs. They also dismissed it won't be digital only either. Now they have an odd quote in here. They say Nintendo recommends a 32 gigabyte cartridge. I don't know if that implies that's the highest they go, the lowest they go. It's a little below what you see on current next-gen games, but Nintendo games tend to be a bit smaller. I'm sure they could fit within that limit. As well, I got to think, you know, maybe that 32 gig cartridge is just fine for displaying graphics on the handheld. You get home, you download some texture packs, and up those graphics for the big screen, right? I mean, handhelds only need to be so high resolution, depending on the size of the screen. So I have to think that maybe they'll do something to maybe sort of downclock the hardware when it's in portable mode and maybe upscale it when it's docked, right? I mean, you kind of think the handheld, what's that going to be? 540 at most 720p resolution. You dock it, you got to think it's got to go up to 1080p, right? No plans for backwards compatibility. No surprise there. This is totally different architecture from what they've been using in the past, particularly on their very outdated console hardware architecture. They had another source saying that the system would run on a new operating system. It won't, contrary to earlier rumors, run on Android. And hey, the system reveal is planned for September, so let's get on it already, Nintendo. I'm ready. This whole story raises so many questions, more questions than answers. Let's get that full reveal out of the way as soon as we can. Let me know what you think about this description of the NX. Is this something that appeals to you? Personally, I think I would have preferred separate handheld and consoles that share the same games between them. If it was going to be a hybrid, I prefer not also having this weird breakout controller stuff. It just seems like you're getting a lot of parts you don't need. If you're primarily a handheld or a console gamer, you're kind of paying for both. I think that they could take a lot of this handheldy stuff out, put it in a very simple box, and have it as a very cheap console. As it is, this sounds a bit pricey. So we'll see. What do you think? Let me know. Thanks for watching.